Mbembe to the plenary chair. Let's give a round of applause to Mr. Aaron Clevis Mbembe as he comes to the podium. You can take a seat, sir. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the key men whom everybody, when I see him, my eyes change to dollar signs, is around Mr. Eddie Muhumuza, the BDF Corporate and Relationship Officer, the man who speaks the language of money. Ladies and gentlemen, help me to welcome Mr. Eddie to the podium. This is the man with your money. So let's clap hands. I think maybe we can increase some loans. Let's clap hands for Mr. Eddie. You'll top up some millions. Thank you so much, our $1 million man. Help me, ladies and gentlemen, to also welcome once again to the podium, all the way from India, His Excellency Dr. Naveed Kapoor from Peaceful Minds Foundation. Let's give a round of applause to Dr. Naveed Kapoor. I don't know if you have brought some spices from India. I like turmeric from India, some curry, but today I know you are going to spice this event. Thank you so much, Doctor. Ladies and gentlemen, help me also to welcome Ms. Tanyaradzwa Makotore. Ms. Tanyaradzwa Makotore, all the way from Zimbabwe. Let's give a round of applause to the lady from Zimbabwe. Thank you so much. There's now a direct flight from Rwanda to Zimbabwe and back to Rwanda. So we thank you so much for coming all the way from Zimbabwe. For your own information, Zimbabwe is in the southern part of Africa and is the only last two countries with the letter Z, Zimbabwe and Zambia. Thank you so much, Ms. Tanyaradzwa Makotore. Ladies and gentlemen, to stay up this event, and also I want to call upon the man with many titles, but I will not call them today. He was awarded just recently a space to speak at CHOGM. This man is none other than Mr. Charlene P. Chikomo, the founder and president of what they call Juice Academy. Let's give a round of applause to Mr. Charlene Chikomo as he's going to moderate this session. Thank you. Let's give a round of applause to Charlene Chikomo. Thank you.
Greetings, everybody. Let's all stand up and do something to just put some energy in the room, and then we start. Stand up, stand up, stand up. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm from Zimbabwe, and in Zimbabwe we believe in energy. So I just need some energy in the room, then we start. Is that good? Is that good? Yes. So when I say mental health, you say our health. Mental health. No, you can do better than that. Mental health. Our health. Mental health. Our health. Mental health. Our health. Mental health. Mental health. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So, thank you very much, everybody. My name is Charlene President Chikomo from Zimbabwe. Like he said, I run an organization called the Juice Leadership Initiative. This is an organization that seeks to raise a generation of highly impactful leaders, particularly the youths. So how we do it is we bridge the gap between schools and communities. For the young people who are here, you know that in schools they teach us to get a certificate, but in the community they want a skill. In schools they tell us that when you finish you're going to get a job, but our countries have highest level of unemployment. What we actually need are people who can create the opportunities. And in schools they teach us things, but who you know is more important than what you know. So we are shifting education from knowing things to also knowing beings. That's why I love the topic of today, because it's about well-being, the wellness of the human beings, and that is very important to me. And today I'm going to be your host with these amazing speakers who are going to help us understand the topic of today. I know we have talked about mental health, we have talked about drug abuse, we have talked about depression and so forth. But the issue of mental health cuts across different things. It's a cross-cutting issue. It cuts across issues of gender. It cuts across issues of governance. It cuts across issues of law. It cuts across issues of finance. It's everything. So these amazing speakers are going to help us today have a deeper understanding of some of these underlying factors. How many of you are ready? You guys are not ready at all. Are you guys ready? So we are going to talk about very interesting issues. We are going to talk about policy, legal frameworks, and gaps. And Mr. Aaron Clevis, please bear with me. I might not pronounce your name very well, except for Mr. Nyaradza from Zimbabwe. I think that's a Shona name. I'll pronounce it very, very well. So for policy, legal frameworks, and gaps, Mr. Aaron Clevis Mbembe will help us. And then the second one is the stakeholders' involvement in support to women, girls, men to enhance entrepreneurial skills. That's Eddie Muhuza from BDF, who is a BDF representative. And then the next one, which is an interesting topic and maybe the fulcrum of this conversation, mental health as the next pandemic. His Excellency Dr. Nabiti Kappa from Peaceful Minds of Foundation India. Then the last but not least, what needs to be done to level up opportunities for the girls and women entrepreneurs and look at policies that support innovation and entrepreneurship. And Mr. Nyaradza Makotore will help us with that one. So to start, this conversation is going to take place for the next 1 hour. But what we are going to do is to give our presenters 10 minutes to make your presentation. And after that, I'll ask you a few questions. So 7 to 10 minutes. And when your time is done, I will give you a signal so that we keep time. So allow me to hand over to Mr. Aaron Clevis Mbewe to give us his presentation on policy, legal frameworks, and gaps. Let's give him a round of applause. Mr. Aaron, you're welcome.
Thank you very much for that vibrant introduction. Yes, of course, my name is Mbembe Aaron Clevis, and I work with the Health Development Initiative. I'm the Associate Director in charge of policy influencing and advocacy. So I'm happy to share with you updates or an overview of the policy and the legal framework around drug use, and probably can look into existing gaps, which I used to call opportunity for improvement. Yeah, generally in Rwanda, we have really a strong policy framework around mental health globally. And when you go into our policies, starting from the Rwanda mental health policy and the other strategic documents, you find that the government has suggested or initiated a number of initiatives to tackle some of the issues related to mental health. And at the same time, we have a legal framework that prevent and sanction the use of drugs. For instance, when you look into the law determining offenses and penalties in general, it has some of provisions that prohibit the use of drugs, prohibit the sale of drugs, prohibit the all kind of businesses around the drugs, and there are sanctions. When you look at this, for instance, because each law normally it is adopted to regulate or to resolve a given social problem. Because when there is no social problem, there is no need to have a law, because everything is okay. So when you look into our society, we are having young people who are having issues of drug addiction, which is affecting their development, which is affecting their education, which is affecting almost their lives. So that's why having such a law prohibiting and punishing the use of drug is something really positive. But when you come again, when you try again to analyze the situation on the ground, you will realize that there is much effort, of course, in education and in providing legal boundaries so that people should not or should be discouraged to use drugs. So what is the problem having such a legislation now is that the issue of drug use, the issue of drug addiction is a mental health issue. It is a health issue. So applying a legal response to a health matter, sometimes we are missing now an opportunity to tackle the problem from its root causes. When you look at the response, it is always arresting those people who use drugs. It is always imprisoning them, or sometimes to send them to rehabilitation centers, which is good. But we are also missing an opportunity to put in place mechanisms to link them to health system. Because these people, they are ill, they are patient. What they need, first of all, is not to go into custody, it is just to access health care. So there we are missing an opportunity, and I think there is an opportunity to improve. Another thing, some of these young people who have been sent to rehabilitation centers, they can go there. It's a huge program, but the issue now is when they complete those programs and they come back to the society, there is no effective mechanism to prepare the society to receive that young person when the person is coming back to the society. And when the person is coming back, you will see that the first reaction of the society is to reject, to stigmatize this person, and that explains the high level of relapse, because this person will again be received and accepted by the fellow drug users. So this again, I can say it is another issue we are facing. So coming back to the issue, to the policy framework again. You know, in Rwanda we have what we call a national strategy against HIV. And this national strategy against HIV recognizes MSM, or men who have sex with men, and female sex workers as key population in HIV responses, because these people, they have a high risk of contracting HIV. But this is not yet the case for people who use drugs in Rwanda, while we know that they share needles which make them vulnerable to HIV. But having the policy not recognizing them, not having interventions targeting them, I think we are also missing an opportunity to include those people in our HIV interventions. Another thing related to policy, I would say the interventions we are suggesting as a response to drug addiction, and I would say specifically to those people who use heroin, who inject heroin. We are missing the opportunity to start the harm reduction programming, which has a number of interventions, including, for instance, the needle exchange programs, which would mitigate, for instance, the risk of contamination of HIV and hepatitis C, the initiation of methadone. Yes, we have it, but it is currently at the decentralized level for a specific group. Again, those are kind of opportunities we are missing. So in brief, what I can say, yes, in Rwanda, the policy framework is good, but I can see like two recommendations. The first one is to recognize and to include people who inject drugs among key populations, so that they can also benefit from the national strategy program against HIV. And of course, it will benefit to all of us because they are also drivers of HIV. I I would suggest that also Rwanda would consider to explore the possibility of introducing a comprehensive harm reduction program. And 2 points: at the legal level, there is a room to revise laws with the view to provide more opportunities to drug users to access, first of all, health services before the legal proceedings, and also to put in place effective measures to ensure the integration of people who used to use drugs when they are coming back from the rehabilitation centers. Thank you very much.
A round of applause for him. You guys can do better than that, right? Thank you very much for such a wonderful presentation, touching on the policy, the legal framework, and the gaps. But I love, what I love the most is how you touched the root causes of some of these challenges, not just the effects of them. Thank you very much for your presentation. And I'm not going to ask you the question right now, but I have a question for you. Let me have another presenter so that I'll ask the questions once. So our next presentation is on stakeholders' involvement in support to women, girls, and men to enhance entrepreneurial skills by Eddie Mahuza. I don't know if I pronounced that well. Bear with me. Yeah, over to you, Eddie.
Thank you, MC. Is it a good afternoon or a good evening? Good evening. I'm happy that I'm back. Earlier it was a good morning, and and I carried a huge responsibility of being CEO for a short time. So I'm back to my position, and I'm back to what I do in my everyday life. So as BDF, one of the reasons why we said we should join this conference and do the sponsorship and be part of different panels, it's because of the youth, women that were supposed to attend. So the biggest reason why I'm here because of the audience. So from there, the question that I'm being asked to reflect on, when you talk about stakeholders and when you talk about support for girls, women and men, then you're talking about BDF. So earlier in the morning, I was talking about different services that we offer, but specifically I talked about on services that we offer to the graduates from rehabilitation centers. So it was on mental health and financing, what should be done, and now it brings me in a good position to talk about stakeholders. So I don't think there is one person who is enough to cover or to do everything alone. So that's why we need stakeholders. That's why we need different skills from different organizations and people. And that's why even the panel has different people with different backgrounds. So we need each other. So stakeholders, when it comes to the support for women, youth, men, and girls, it's not something that you can do alone. It is something that we should combine our efforts to address the challenges that are being faced by these groups as mentioned. So for us, I'm going to talk about on the side of entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial skills. So BDF as an organization, an institution of the government, we have staff. We have staff who are dedicated, and we also have a department dedicated to entrepreneurship skills development. So that department, fits in a question that I was asked. So to talk about that, we've been doing this, helping women, girls, and other people in developing their skills. How do we do it? So we have a program called, it's a International Labour Organization's program called Start and Improve Your Business, or SIYB. So that program is designed by ILO, and the only organization allowed to do that, that qualifies to do that, is BDF in Rwanda. So we have different groups. I'm going to talk into the details about that product, about that program. This program covers categories of 3 or 4 categories. One is we have a group of people who want to do business, but they don't have business idea, a concrete business idea. So someone is saying, I want to do business. But if you ask which kind of business, he or she will say, I'm not sure. So that group is there. And we don't ignore that group. We take that group into a series of training, starting from the background, what they did and what they did best, until through brainstorming, until we have the idea that really fits that person and confident to do as a business. So that is one group. Those who want to do business without business idea. So from there, after getting business idea, we start with a business plan. Business plan is about developing the business idea. So we already have the idea. That idea can be developed into a business plan. That is group number 2. There are people out there with a business idea but cannot do their business plan. So we help that group in developing a business plan. So you have an idea, you have a business plan. Now what next? We have another group that are already in business, but they don't know where they do well and where they do, where their weakness is. I don't want to use the word bad. Where the weakness is, where the strength is, and how to concentrate on those 2 different aspects. So we have that group. We put them into a series of training, 3 to 5 days, and then we help them understand their business, help them improve the weaknesses they have in that business. And sometimes most of the business that business people that we receive, sometimes the person doesn't know if he or she makes profits or he's in loss. So we help that group also to improve their weakness, the weaknesses they have in the business. So that is category number 3. There is also that one for enterprise, a big one, that those who wants to go into restructuring. That is business. So that's where stakeholders come in. As I've explained the categories, BDF cannot do this alone. We need stakeholders. We need Rwanda Youth Impact to come in, have that group, sit down, see what we can do, and also what the role they can play. I'm using Rwanda Youth Impact as an example, because we've been doing this with other organizations, non-government organizations and other organizations. So when what I wanted to highlight is, through all those groups, what we are doing is developing their entrepreneurial skills. At the end of it, you can run your business confidently, that you know the weaknesses and the strength of your business. At least you can have that business idea, you can have that, you can develop that business plan, you can have that business plan also. Because in most cases when you go to financial institutions or elsewhere, anyone who cannot afford to sponsor or to implement the business without support from outside, we need a business plan. That is a written document. So that written document is what you present. You cannot just come to BDF or to the banks and say, give me money, I have this idea. What you present is a business plan. So if you have those skills, you have that business plan, now you can compete. You can go for the loan, you can go for any grant, you can go for any sponsorship with your business plan. So developing a business, developing entrepreneurial skills needs support, needs partners, needs stakeholders. So when we talk about girls, women, and youth, girls, women, and men, we define them in our in BDF. We have priorities. We support all the people. All the people access our products. So as long as you have a business that is legally allowed to be implemented within the borders of Rwanda. So what we do, we say, okay, we have if we have a product like a guarantee product, we will say, okay, men, we say above 30, someone who is who qualifies to be a man, not a youth, is above 30. So anyone above 30 and he's a male, is qualified as a man. So you will get a cover of 50%. So priority goes to women, girls, and youth, who are considered as people who in history has been left behind. And the youth, we know they don't have that much exposure to do business. So youth also comes into that category, and we train. Okay, it's back on. Okay, so the priority is given to those groups, and they maximize. We give the maximum of 75%, and that doesn't say that men are being left behind. No, at least above 30, you have that exposure, and if we can provide 50% of the cover, you can bring something as a collateral to give the bank, and then you get the loan. So for those groups, and most of them are here, I want to tell you that you are our priority. Thank you. I think that's what I have to say.
Thank you so much, Eddie. Thank you. Another round of applause for Eddie. Thank you so much, Eddie. You know, Eddie is saying a lot of very important things. You know, we don't go far as our dream. We go far as our team. And I think one of the most important things when it comes to bringing change that we want is the unity of different stakeholders to make sure that together we can. And, you know, I always tell people that one finger cannot kill an animal, but when we join them to make a hand, surely we can not only hold, but we will definitely kill it. So what Eddie is talking about, I think, is very important, not just for them as stakeholders, but even for the young people that are listening, that sometimes we want to compete so much. We only have competitors, but we also don't have stakeholders. Mental health is a big fish to fry. You cannot fry it alone. It needs different stakeholders to come on board. And I think some of the young people who are listening here, you also have your organization, and maybe Eddie will tell us how young people who have organizations are, if they are also welcome to come and be part of the big ship that is ready to transform the continent and the world. Thank you so much, Ed. I'll come back to you. I think you might be thinking about that as I come. Let me go to our next presenter. Wow, this one, I love it. Mental health. Oh, you guys have forgotten. Mental health. Our health. Mental health. Our health. Okay. The next presenter, I love the name of their organization, Peaceful Minds Foundation, India. Peaceful Minds Foundation India. And I love this because I always believe that everything starts from the mind. In fact, when we look at the word mindset, it starts with the word mind and then set. So what you think is what you establish. So let's see how peaceful are these minds. Allow me to introduce His Excellency Dr. Nabiti Kapa to give us a presentation on mental health as the next pandemic. We thought COVID-19 was the last pandemic. His Excellency is saying there's another one that is coming of mental health. His Excellency, over to you. Yeah, the tech team, you can help us with the presentation. Thank you.
WHO has asked the world not to ignore mental health any longer. According to the World Health Organization, close to 450 million people are living with a mental health condition. And that is not all. About 25% of the people in the world will experience a mental health issue at one point of the time in their lifetime. As per the 2017 survey, India had the highest number of people living with depression. Mental health crisis is going to cost the economies over the world a lot by the year 2030. And this was the forecast done by the World Health Organization. So what are we basically looking at is a mental health crisis unfolding slowly but very surely. Even as countries the world over are slowly coming to terms with this crisis, the cost to our mental health is only beginning to surface now. Unfortunately, despite several governmental and global health organizations spending billions of dollars and money, but the majority of the world population is still unaware of the value of a sound mind. It seems that we have taken our mental health for granted and don't consider it as important as our physical health. The mental health issues are spreading fast, obviously aided by the current state of isolation and anxiety because of the COVID-19, but the awareness about almost negligent. It seems as if people are not able to see this crisis with the naked eye. And that is one of the reasons why suicide, anxiety, and other mental health issues are still on the rise and costing lives. Why do we only have to talk about mental health issues, suicide, anxiety, depression, and other related issues according to this, when somebody only commits suicide or some celebrity is talking about it? It isn't hard to imagine what could be the case at the grassroots level. Mental health issues are going to cost us human lives if we continue to look the other way. Perfunctory discussions, public courts, seminars, conferences, spending billions of money isn't going to prevent that. And what will prevent this human cost is that we care. We talk more frankly about it to people around us in whatever capacity we can. Come out, reach out to people, express your thoughts, be non-judgmental, be a good listener are all the characteristics which will actually help us to curb the mental health issues. The government and health organizations need to look into this direction to create a very vast range of mental health perception across the globe. Our mental well-being needs to be our priority in public discourse and private conversations.
Thank you, everybody. So I saved a little bit of energy by showing this. Not to speak much, I think most of it was already spoken in the video. And this video was made in 2020 when actually the COVID-19 started. And so many cases we have handled free of cost, of course, with world over, online, offline. Obviously, when we were in India, we were doing offline, but most of it was done online. Until now, from 2020 till 2021, when the pandemic was at the highest peak, you can say June 2021, Peaceful Mind Foundation has handled more than 13,000 cases free of cost. Counseling sessions, therapies, workshops, webinars, seminars, online, everything was handled free of cost, just training people to understand that if you find somebody dealing with any kind of crisis, just have a friendly hand towards that person, just intervene little bit. Because as I forecast, the UN is saying 2030, maybe just little before that we can have another pandemic as mental health issues try to take our lives away. Suicide is increasing, whether it's African continent, whether it's Asian continent, whether it's India, whether it's Middle East. Most of the times these things are not even reported, but the cases are generally rising. I mean, we all are sitting here in this room, we are approximately 50-60 people, and there is no one person sitting in this room who is going without trouble at the back of the mind. Whether it is you are not conscious about it, but somewhere down the line you are going through an issue. But good that you have people, that is why you're sitting here, who you can talk to. But there are certain people who are hesitant to talk. You have to identify them in your circle and train them so that they can make a chain of helping others. And that is how we can actually prevent this kind of a pandemic which might happen, according to me. Thank you.
Wow. Technology came to save time. Thank you so much, His Excellency. Thank you so much for such a very short presentation, but very long in impact. Thank you very much. Our next presentation, as you all know, everything is good. Where are we coming from? Right? Where are we coming from? The history of what we are doing. Where are we? The present reality. But where are we going? I'm sure that's the question you are beginning to ask yourself as you are seated there. Where are we going with this? And the last but not the least presentation we are going to have is going to give us sort of a best foot forward. It's going to give us more of the solutions, more of the steps we are going to take going forward. And Ms. Tanyaraza is going to take us through what needs to be done to level up opportunities for the girls and women entrepreneurs and look at policies that support innovation and entrepreneurship. I'm sure we all know that one of the problems we have faced in the African continent is the problem of patriarchy, where men have been at the forefront of everything. And it's about time the world is beginning to look at those who have been left behind and trying to find a way that we can accelerate the pace of their development as well. And some of the most, targeted groups in this is the girls and women who are entrepreneurs. We know it is a difficult path, but I hope Ms. Tanyaraza is going to shed more light on that and to give us a better understanding, but also the best foot forward as we journey on this. Ms. Tanyaraza, over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator, for giving me the platform to have a conversation with young people. I was actually happy when I heard someone say that we have an organization for young mothers. I heard something about young mothers who are actually doing something. And it shows the relevance of this conversation because we already have women and girls who are actually active in terms of entrepreneurship and in terms of business. And so it's quite a relevant conversation. So today I'm going to be talking to you about what needs to be done to level up opportunities for girls and women entrepreneurs, and also look a bit at the policies that support innovation and entrepreneurship. So to start off with, there's a saying that I really love. I was seeing much of it. Yeah, so that's the presentation, that's the topic. What needs to be done to level up opportunities for girls and women entrepreneurs and look at policies that support innovation and entrepreneurship. So I love that statement. When a woman earns income, they invest 90% back into their communities. I feel that I should start with this for my presentation because I want to show the relevance of women in terms of business. We are not just people who do business and leave it at that. We invest back into the communities. And as we're here for this conference, the challenges that we're talking about, they're starting at community level, they're starting at grassroots level. So it's quite important for us to look at women in communities and how they can contribute after they get these opportunities in terms of innovation and in terms of entrepreneurship. With me, I have a few statistics. I won't dwell much on them, but I just want to give you something to think about. Women represent the largest market opportunity and control 20 trillion US dollars in annual spending. So this is women. We are spending that much per year. We also have women who account for more than 50% of Africa's population. And in 2018, we have information that we only generated 33% of the continent's collective GDP, which means we are many in terms of numbers, but we're not doing as much in terms of business, in terms of entrepreneurship, and in terms of innovation. And then lastly, we have the GEM report of 2016 to 2017, which stated that our continent actually has one of the highest numbers of women who are in business. And I felt that I should add this because it shows that at least we're doing something, but we need assistance in terms of policies. We need assistance in terms of ensuring that we access opportunities so that we grow and we have a lot of success stories. I'll just rush through some of the challenges and barriers that women are facing in terms of business. Mr. Moderator spoke about male dominance, cultural barriers. And I feel that this is something that is applicable to almost everyone in this room because most of us are from Africa, right? African countries. And patriarchy is something that is common in a lot of countries. And it has its positive side, and it also has its what? Its negative side. So we have those cultural barriers, educational level, women not going to school, marital status, women not being allowed to do certain things because you're married. I was actually having a conversation with my mother before I left, and then she was saying, you're going to Rwanda, and you just told us that you're going to Rwanda, and we said, okay, but the moment you get married, that might end. You have a lot of explaining to do. So this shows that how marital status also affects women. We also have the issue of family size, male dominance, household roles and expectations. There are a lot of expectations for women, and then also childbearing roles, you're a mother, etc. And then moving on, we also have financial barriers, lack of access to funding. As women, we do not have access to funding. We have that lady who spoke of them needing assistance in terms of funding. We have issues of lack of access to spaces to attract investment because we are not there in those spaces. We are not there, we're not taking our chairs and going there to have the conversation to attract investment. And then we also have this statement which states that female business owners typically reinvest up to 90% of their profits into the education, health, and nutrition of their families. So we have women starting businesses so that they feed their children, women starting businesses so that they take their children to school. So that's the only picture that they are seeing. They are not then thinking about the bigger picture, wanting that business to grow, becoming a success story at the end of the day. They only limit themselves to getting small profits, which can feed the family and take the family to school. And then we also have lack of information on financial management. So what should be done to level up opportunities for girls and women entrepreneurs? Firstly, let's educate. I always say this, ignorance is the biggest inhibitor to any progress that we might want to make ever. If you do not know something, you're never going to do anything about it. So let's educate girls and women. And I also want to stress the importance of reaching out to young people in marginalized areas of the country, especially the rural areas. We are here at this conference having this conversation. Do we have representatives from rural parts of the country who are going to take this information back and also educate others? It's quite an important step so that we do not leave anyone behind when having these conversations. And then secondly, we should create associations in which we gather and support each other, especially as women. Back home, I'm actually a student in metallurgical engineering, and I've worked with women miners. We have a group of women miners back in Zimbabwe called the Mtandazo Women's Miners Association. So what they discovered is that mining is a male-dominated industry. And for them to access claims and to do their mining activity, they were facing challenges. They came together, created an association, started doing what we call financing for each other, giving each other money. And now in 2022, almost all of them have claims, actually more than 4 claims per person, and they've integrated and penetrated the mining sector. So let's create associations where women can come together, share ideas, and help each other. And then financing houses for women. I'm not sure, in Rwanda, do we have a bank for women, specifically for women? A women's bank? So this is actually something that is also needed. We need a bank for women, a women's bank, a bank which understands the needs of women and which can actually assist them to get finance. And then we also need exhibition events where women can showcase their work. You'll be surprised the ideas that women have. You'll be surprised the ideas that girls have in their communities. But we do not know about them because we're not giving them spaces so that they express those ideas. So we need to have exhibitions where we tell these girls, where we tell women to come and showcase their work and probably then attract investment. And then we also need entrepreneurial hubs in communities and colleges. I'm still a student, and I feel that we have a lot of ideas, project ideas that we have, especially as students who are learning, but we're failing to then make these ideas come to life because we do not have entrepreneurial hubs which can support our ideas. So it's quite an important step also as an opportunity for girls and women entrepreneurs. Then we should prioritize resource allocation and disbursement to women empowerment programs. I really am becoming a feminist. I usually was saying that I'm not, but I am becoming a feminist. Let's prioritize in budgets, national development strategies that we have as a country. Are we prioritizing women in the money that we are actually allocating? We were speaking about budget allocations. Do we have allocations that actually allow for gender mainstreaming, that allow for women's voices to be heard, that allow for women to occupy spaces? We need such budgets so that women realize their fullest potential. And then let's also promote positive success stories of female finders. This is very important. And I always say this, we want to hear success stories of locals, of people that we know. I can't come here and then, I'm from Zimbabwe, start telling you a success story of a woman in Zimbabwe. You can't relate. So right here in Rwanda, we want to hear the success stories of women who have made it. We want to empower other girls so that they also know that this is doable. I can also get to this place. And then finally, let's combat gender-based violence. I am a Gen and Youth Ambassador with Restless Development, and mostly what we work with is ending AIDS by 2030. That's what we're working with, towards currently. And you also see that gender-based violence is playing a role in suppressing women and their ability to realize their fullest potential. So we need policies that support women. We need women to be protected so that they're able to do their business in spaces, they're able to communicate, they're able to network, and at the end of the day, grow. So in terms of creation of policies that support innovation and entrepreneurship, I'm not going to go much, but I just want to give you these policies. Go and read about it. It's always good to read. As I said earlier, ignorance is the biggest inhibitor to progress. So please go and take a look. In Southern Africa, we have the SADC Protocol on Gender and Development, Article 17 on Economic Development. Then we also have the Protocol to the African Charter on Human Rights and People's Sexual Rights of Women in Africa. And specifically, it looks at women's sexual and reproductive health and how it should not hinder their success abilities. And then we also have SDG number 5, the Sustainable Development Goal number 5, which seeks to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. So I'm giving you guys this as an assignment. Just go and take a look at these. And then also a policy that we can have is tax exemption for businesses owned by women and girls. As a government, these are some of the things you can put in place so that you ensure that girls and women catch up with the males, because the males are far ahead. They're already on half time, and we haven't started the game yet. So we need to catch up. So we need such policies. And what do we expect to see, the outcomes? We want to see growing women participation in the economy across all sectors, be it mining, be it medicine. We want to see women occupy spaces. We need to see more women in decision-making positions. We need to see growing women income. We need equal opportunities for women as well. And as I conclude, I'm going to leave you with this question. As women and girls, how are we sabotaging ourselves from getting opportunities as entrepreneurs and as innovators? Because we might complain and say we are not being supported, but we have also certain tendencies that we have that are actually sabotaging us. I'll give an example of fear. You are afraid to occupy spaces. You're afraid of being labeled talkative. Like me, I'm always labeled talkative. I heard Mr. MC speak of noise. They know that if we have a campaign back home and Tanya is there's a lot of noise. So do not be afraid. Do not be timid of occupying spaces, because that's how you're going to get your voice heard, and that is how you're going to get those equal opportunities that you're crying for in terms of entrepreneurship and in terms of business. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
As BDF. There is nothing that we do 100% for the young people. Starting from our products. However much we support you, you must have your contribution. So we don't give, just take this and it's all. No. Since we are called the Business Development Fund, we mean business. So when we are giving out any product, we have a certain percentage that we expect you, the project owner, to invest. So we are not doing it all for young people or for anyone. So what we do as BDF, youth are our partners. We have products specifically designed for youth, and we have organizations, youth organizations that we engage. When we go into agriculture, there is an organization called RIAF. Is RIAF represented here? It's Rwanda Youth in Agribusiness. So it is specific for the youth. So wherever we want to design any product that is specifically to the youth, we cannot sit and decide that we are going to do this. No. We engage youth. They give us their ideas, their opinions, and then if it's developing a product, it's developed with inclusive of the ideas from the youth. So BDF is not giving 100%, however much we say that we are giving money or we are supporting access to finance, we do it with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eddie. Yeah, I think even Rwanda, the youth impact is also doing it with the young people. I'm just 23 years old and I'm also on the panel with His Excellencies here. I think let's clap hands for them. Okay, thank you. I think I'll go back to my sister. Since you were the last, I think let's make you the second this time. You talked about what needs to be done. Okay, I'm talking about Mr. Nyaradzo. You talked about what needs to be done to level up opportunities for girls and women entrepreneurs and look at policies that support innovation and entrepreneurship. Now the most unfortunate part is that I'm seated here. Maybe the fortunate part, I'm an educator. I believe in the power of education to transform our societies. And one of the biggest problems we are facing, especially in Africa, is that we are only talking about entrepreneurs, but our education systems are not actually encouraging entrepreneurship. Like, I studied in Zimbabwe, for example. I was the national highest among those people, but I didn't know anything of myself. I just know that I'm the best student amongst all these people. I'm the best, but only to find that even those who were calling failures, they actually started doing great things in life, because entrepreneurship is not really taught in our curriculums, but you realize that's what the world is demanding for. Now, when you were giving your best foot forward, when you're giving your solutions, you talked about we need to, and you talked about a lot of things. What are some of the things that you can say to these young people seated in this room today that they can do? Not necessarily what they need to wait for somebody to do for them. Because one of the biggest problems we have faced is we've been waiting for people who are not coming. And one of the most difficult thing we have to realize as young people is we are the ones to actually start initiating what we want. Otherwise, we will wait until we are old. When our fathers here were waiting, they were waiting for what we are still waiting for, but maybe it didn't come. So what is your advice that is personal and that somebody can leave as a girl this house today and go and I can actually do it. Because when they go to school, they might not get that knowledge, but they don't have power even to change the curriculum. But what can they do on their own so that they can actually be able to help themselves? I don't know if that is clear, Tanya.
Yes, it is. To young people, I would just really love to say, be hungry, you know. This is a very powerful tool, this thing that I'm holding. But what are you using it for? What are you using your cell phone for? You're on social media. Who are you following on social media? Who are you following? Today we're at a conference where we're talking about the COVID-19 pandemic and mental health. Today that was the first time they heard about mental health. They haven't come across that in any time in their life because they do not strategize in their mind to see, what do I need to know, you know? So be hungry and use this to feed yourself with relevant information. If I was to open my Facebook account, for example, for you guys, you would see United Nations, you would see the United States Embassy, you would see your mental health, you would see a lot of organizations that I follow. And all these opportunities, I told you, I was talking to a friend there. I'm doing metallurgical engineering. I'm a sciences person. It has nothing to do with what I'm here to do today. And people always say, how do you get to these spaces? But I'm hungry. And that's how I get to the spaces. So to young people, be hungry and make sure that you get that information and go to spaces, start something. And the only way you can always start something is if you're what? Guys, I said if you're what? Exactly. Let's be hungry as young people. Thank you so much.
How many of you guys are hungry? If you're hungry, raise up your hand. Some people are not hungry. They're too full. Thank you so much. I love what you said, like when she talked about your phone. You know, I remember, I think when I was in high school, that was 2012 in Zimbabwe, our teachers used to beat us for bringing phones to school. So in 2020, they started saying to students, bring them, form WhatsApp groups. Then I used to remind my teachers, you remember those days you used to beat us for bringing phones here, putting us on suspension. Surely things change. And let's just use our phones for important things. There's no need for giving an excuse that I don't have money to go to university. Those courses are on YouTube. They are on Coursera for free. She talked about also the people you follow. Some of us just follow, you know, certain celebrities who have nothing to transform in our minds, but only to influence us to do certain things. So there are certain people we now need to start following. And the other thing is be hungry. I'm leaving this room very, very hungry. I'm not joking, guys. I'm very hungry. I need food. Thank you so much, Miss Tanya Razwam. His Excellence. Mental health is the next pandemic. I loved it. I think this needs to be a book. I think sometime you need to write a book. Mental health, the next pandemic. That book can be the best seller. I love how you pick your titles. This is the best. My question to you is, now that we have seen, you have given us the facts, you've given us the statistics, you've given us the concrete challenges that are at the ground. And it's true that the pandemic is coming, or maybe the pandemic is already here. Just like COVID-19, when it was in China, we were here dancing, only to find out within a few months later it is with us. So, but this one is amongst ourselves. What can we do to either prevent or stop the pandemic? Is it possible to stop the pandemic from coming? And if it's possible, what can we do? What is the way forward?
Yeah. So in the morning session, when we were talking about all this, as I mentioned, mental health is something to do with you individually. Okay. So it is with you only since the time you're born. Now, how you condition it, how you tackle it, how you maintain it is totally up to you and to the society where you're living. Maybe the mental health pandemic is already here. We do not know because the hike and the ruckus is not created as COVID-19. But the situation is actually aggravated after COVID-19. Many cases have been surfaced only after COVID-19, and people have started talking about mental health only after this pandemic. It was there in university as a subject, as a theory, maybe some practical, but there was no right execution to the mental health policies. Now, when I say that, like she was saying that, see who you are following, who is following you, etc., etc. You go on to my Twitter or my Instagram, ministers are following me, that's all. The reason I get them on board is to shake up the mental health policies which are framed globally. So at least there is one unanimous voice that the policy has to focus on well-being and not just suicide and depression and anxiety. There are other aspects related to mental health. In any country, when any policy is being formed, it has to do with the people, with the citizens. And when the policies are being formed, the citizens go according to that policy, whether it's good or bad, whether it's not suiting them or suiting them. That is a macro mental health policy which every government should take into account. You know, I always say one thing in my lectures or in my articles. In any government department, when in a parliament also, when the policies are being formed, have at least 2 psychologists sitting on the board. It is important. Because how your policies are going to affect people, you don't know on the ground. So yes, it is much possible that we can control it. Being a friend, being a well-wisher, you know, in your own circle, start identifying people who you think might need help. Since you're not a professional, so you cannot intervene professionally, but at least just saying that I am there for you might actually sort out 50% of the problem. My shoulder is there for you. I care for you. I mean, not nagging, what is the issue? Like in India, you know, we always do, tell me, and the person gets irritated and is like, just shut up. Just giving a care and hope that things will be fine. That is the first aspect of mental well-being. That is why I do not use the word mental illness that much. I always use mental well-being. And that is why in today's area, after COVID-19, in the diplomatic sphere where I'm now entering and I'm working, well-being diplomacy is important. Every country, every government has to take care of the other countries and others' citizens' welfare also into account, not just your own. Because we are living as global citizens. We are not just one Indian or Rwandan or Zimbabwean. We are global citizens. And the world is very small because of this now, honestly. So be hopeful, things can happen. Help each other, stop and do not pull each other down, because that is one thing which I've seen in Indians also. I think it happens outside India also. But be hopeful, things can fall into place, and mental well-being is actually very important now. Very, very, very important. Out of 5, you see 1 suicide happening in the ratio or in the percentage if you see it, even in today. I was reading a report last night of Ethiopia and there was one more place, South Africa. So in Ethiopia and South Africa, 10% of the population is having mental health issues. 10% of the entire population, that is what was written. I don't know how authentic it was. Out of which only 1% gets treatment. So you can understand how mental health issues are being accessible or approachable or not. That is also important. So it is not just the government. We as people, we as individuals can do a lot of things to stop even pushing government to do everything. We individuals can do a lot of things together. Similarly, the social media is there, your articles writing are there. Even if you don't have access to anything, still your word of mouth can actually help a lot of people. So this is how I see it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, His Excellency. So this is an everyone's responsibility. Thank you so much. My last question goes to our first presenter, Mr. Aaron. You talked about policy, legal frameworks, and gaps. And as I was listening to your wonderful presentation, one of the things you talked about was around the fact that there are laws that prohibit certain things from happening. But from my understanding, it's one thing to have the law, but it's another thing to have people understanding that very law. Because if you find out that the demographics of so many African countries, that young people have the majority of the population, but they are not really educated enough on some of the things like the law. How many of people here know the Constitution? We don't know the Constitution as we know our statuses and some of the things and the gossips that are happening in our nations and small things. So what are some of the things that can be done to make sure that young people develop a better awareness when it comes to the very laws that have been put, number one? And number two, what about other young people who are interested in joining the struggle to close some of these gaps? Like they want to educate their peers on some of these laws and some of these legal frameworks and policies. What can they also do?
Thank you very much. I think I can start by the first question. And I think the two questions have linkages. The question of ignorance or knowledge of the law. In our legal system, unfortunately, we have this principle that the ignorance of the law is not an excuse in the court of the law. Because when the law is published in the official gazette, it is supposed that everyone is aware. So in our legal system, the good thing, in Rwanda, we have laws, they are written, and for people, for an individual who wants to own the law, laws are accessible on different websites, but sometimes laws are written in a legal term with technicity. Sometimes it requires a lawyer to read and understand the spirit of it. So the issue most of the time here we have is not just a matter of the understanding of the law in relation to this issue of drug addiction. The issue is we have the law in relation to prohibition of using drugs. The law would say that many young people are aware that drugs are not welcome, drugs are not allowed. This is why even the ones who use drugs, they used to go to isolated places to consume their drugs. So it means the law is known, there is no doubt about that. So the issue is now about the accommodation of the need to punish those who use drugs and the need to treat the ones who use drugs because they are patient. When you look at the Constitution of Rwanda, Article 22 stipulates that every Rwandan has a right to a good health. So when you use drugs and, you get addicted, it means that you are no longer having that good health that the Constitution grants to you. So the issue is what? When you criminalize the use of drugs, as is the case in Rwanda, it limits somehow people from accessing healthcare. Because the issue is, when the medical doctor came to know that I have used drugs, the medical doctor would report me to the police. When, for instance, I have been, thank you to my sister who raised issues related to gender-based violence. Some of this gender-based violence happened after drug consumption. And it pushes some of the victims to keep quiet because they know if I report this, and when they investigate, they can know that I consumed also drugs. So the criminalization of drugs limits somehow this need to allow these young people who want to access health care to access it because they don't trust where they go. They say, okay, this is a drug, it is prohibited. If they come to know, maybe they can report me to the police, I can get arrested. So that's why we recommend that at least laws should be revised to ensure that there is a room for patients to go confidently to hospitals to seek services, because otherwise there is that conflict. Yes, in practice there are some of providers who can keep quiet, but again, how to know who will keep quiet and who will disclose? So this is a challenge in terms of accessibility. So to end up with the question of youth participation in this, I think as far as laws are concerned, I want to notify you that we should be concerned, because if you ignore the law will not ignore you. So it is your role, first of all, to participate in law-making processes. Most of the laws, when they are discussed at the level of the parliament, which is most of the time open for people to come in and to share their perspectives, their views. So I would encourage young people here to stand up, to make use of these spaces, to raise your voice, to show your challenges, suggest your solutions. Otherwise, if you keep quiet and you think that laws are there for lawyers, yes, lawyers will end up drafting laws that advantages them, but which does not at least saving your interest and your purposes. So young people, you have interest to get involved, but most especially you want to be aware of these laws because it is part of our life. So it is your responsibility to participate and contribute. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. If you ignore the law will not ignore you. Hashtag. I don't know now the time we have, but I wanted to take a few questions. I can see the MCs are now behind me. I don't know, maybe with your guidance, can we take 2 questions or our time is up? We can take 2 questions. So I'm going to take 2 questions, one from a boy, one from a girl. Make sure you've not asked a question before. I would love to give somebody an opportunity who hasn't asked any question since the beginning of this event. I think I'll start with the young lady right there. Yes, can you give the mic to her? So when you ask a question, direct it to the person. And try to summarize it because we have a few minutes. So I'll give you 1 minute. So think about your question, and then when I give you the time, you just give it to us. Thank you.
I would like to say thank you to all our panelists. The information is really enlightening. My question goes to Mr. Aaron. I totally agree with what you say, whereby legalizing the whole mental health thing is not the best. However, I have a question. The legal framework is meant to act as a prevention of it's meant for the prevention sector of of drug abuse. So when we get to, excuse me, my voice is a little bit messed. When it comes to prioritizing, when it comes to prioritizing the treatment, don't we leave a gap whereby we are prioritizing treatment rather than prevention, and yet we also really need to deal with the prevention sector of it all? Because at the end of the day, much as we are better off preventing than treating. So how do we integrate the two, prioritizing both prevention as well as treatment?
Thank you. Mr. Aaron, maybe before you come in, let me just speak to the other person and then you answer once. Who is the next person? Yeah, my brother right there in the back. You can stand up and ask your question. Please hand over the microphone to the gentleman behind. And I'm very sorry for other people who have questions. There's going to be a time, except if it's burning, you can't go home. But if it's not burning you, you can keep it a little bit, and then during the interactions, you can always feel free to ask them. I think they will be here for some minutes. You can see the MC. But I think there's a girl who is burning there. I can give you 30 seconds to just drop your question. I don't usually like to refuse ladies when they want something. I'm also a feminist like my sister. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
When they want something productive.
Thank you. I would like the BDF representative here. Sir, do you ever support the ICT business, for example, like youth among of them? They have an ideas about for starting the ICT businesses like Irembo and the other things. But if you are sure to support the youth for 75%, what is the requirements of the youth should be fulfilled in order for supporting them? So I'm not going too late. I have another question for.
I think I can take one question and then the other one you will ask them
Oh, okay.
because
okay.
of time. I'm very sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, let's get the lady there to ask the last question. Thank you very much. Make it short.
Yeah, good
Thank
evening
you.
to everybody. My name is Celine Himbaza. I'm from Obunge Club Lafiki. Basically, we stand for health principles and self-development. I want to ask question about mental health. My question goes to Professor. The first one is, what are the signs that shows that somebody is depressed? The second one is, what can...
No, I'm going to take one question. I'm very sorry. I can't take two questions after denying another one. Thank you very much. Yes, I hope you guys will be here with me. Our time is running out. I think I'm going to give you 1 minute to answer. Please make it 1 minute. Starting with, yeah, we can start here and then I think the three of you were the ones who were asked.
Yeah, thank you very much for asking a critical question, and it is really a valid one. When you look objectively at the issue. Yes, the first intervention in terms of punishing or punishment, the punishment should target first of all a drug dealer, because this is the person who is getting benefit out of selling drugs. This is someone who is trafficking the drugs across the country or out of the country. And in relation to the Rwandan law, I think a Rwandan law is really very well on that, because the punishment goes even to life imprisonment. But when you start punishing the person who uses drugs, the person who is addicted, a patient, here the philosophy is simple. I started by saying that addiction is a mental health issue. And mental health is a health issue. So, in no case, justice interventions should prevail over health interventions. We need to start by providing care to these people. We need to treat them. What they need, first of all, is treatment. Because even the Constitution stipulates that we all have right to go to health. So, after treating that person, I don't see any problem now to open a justice window. But my concern here is justice to come before health interventions. But again, when you look into the recommendations of WHO on this issue, it is clear that punishing people who use drugs does not really reduce the number of those people who use drugs, but it discourages them from seeking healthcare services. So we need to choose. Is drug addiction a justice issue or a mental health issue? If we clarify this, we shall choose a right intervention. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Eddie. 1 minute.
Thank you. Is ICT, do we support ICT projects? Yes, we do. And the requirements differ depending on which product you want. Since you specifically said about the guarantee, then the only requirement is that the bank has approved your loan, and then the rest is they need the cover, the guarantee cover. BDF approves. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Short and precise. His Excellency.
Hello, yes. So you asked me about depression. See, it's a very textbook question, but I'll simplify it for you. See, depression, something has to be classified under depression. It has to be a prolonged sadness for at least 3 weeks. Prolonged sadness means that somebody is sad throughout 3 weeks and not over to come. So that can be classified as mild depression. If it's a very temporary mood state, like you're happy today, maybe you are sad a little bit, but tomorrow you're fine. So that is not depression. That is just a temporary mood state. Because many of us, I mean approximately every one of us has this tendency to mix both of them. So sadness is different from depression, number one. To classify somebody as being depressed clinically, the person has to go through certain symptoms. 3 of them are major ones: hopelessness, helplessness, and worthlessness. So these 3 things are very important: hopelessness, helplessness, and worthlessness. When a person is facing these 3 things throughout the 3 weeks, you can classify a person as a mild clinically depressed. Still, a very superficial intervention can be given. You can easily go to a counselor or a psychologist just to see how you can be healed. Straight away, do not go for any medications. I'm sorry, I don't want to offend anybody here, but straight away, do not go for medications. See if you can talk it out and you can be fine. But still, if the problem is still there, please refer to a psychiatrist. Then you can go for mild medication if it is required, but with counseling and therapy. That is very important. Rest symptoms or signs you can feel: loss of appetite, loss of pleasurable mood, you sleep well, you don't sleep well, or you sleep excessive, or you don't sleep at all, you eat too much or you don't eat too much. You know, you basically something you used to do every day and you are not doing it that well every day. So that can be classified depression only if it is for 3 to 4 weeks in a prolonged manner. Otherwise, no, I don't think. You just speak out, talk to a friend. If it is helpful, please go on with it. If you find that the friend is also not being helpful and your things are coming out, but still your mental health is not getting perfect, please refer to a psychologist or a qualified counselor. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A round of applause for this great panel here. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you. So allow me to take this opportunity to thank our distinguished panelists. They did a very good job. I know some of these questions were difficult because I had to just think them as you were talking, and to answer impromptuously sometimes difficult, but you did your best. Thank you very much, my sister, for representing the other gender, is showing up on the platforms. Thanks so much. And thanks to our wonderful audience. You've been very engaging, listening. I appreciate it. And thanks so much, Youth Impact, for also trusting me to be the moderator of this event. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you so much.
turabashimiye cyane.
Thank you so much. We thank you so much, moderator and the panelists, for this great service. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you. We are now only left with 25 minutes. We want to squeeze last session. And on the last session, we want to call upon Mr. Jasper Nowezera from Resolve and Impact Hub to come to the podium so that we squeeze. You know, this conference was supposed to take almost like a week because there's some topics which we need to exhaust. I think the organizers have done so well just to try to compress all things in one day. Let's give a round of applause to Mr. Jasper Nowezera as he is going to lead us. Maybe in the next 15 minutes, please be patient. The topic which we are doing is critical. Now, who is also coming from Ndera Hospital?
Reka twakire Dr. Emmanuel Ntakisumba avuye mu bitaro akora mu bitaro by'Indera. You are welcome, sir.
Thank you so much. Let's give a round of applause to the Dr. Emmanuel. Then we also call upon Mr. Moise
Iradukunda n'uwo mu muryango REACH.